I'd like to call this meeting of the Somerset Berkeley Regional School Committee to order at 6:30, notice having been posted. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit this meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions may be made, whether perceived or unperceived by those present. Roll call of members present. Mrs. Gagliardi?
Here.
Mr. Pierce?
Here.
Mr. Gilladucci?
Here.
Mrs. Field?
Here.
Mr. Machado?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
And the chair is also present. Also with us this evening is our Superintendent of Schools, Jeffrey Schoonover, our Director of Business and Finance, Ronald Taro, our Director of Curriculum, Ms. Elizabeth Haskell, our Director of Special Education, Ms. Megan Ashton, and of course our Recording Secretary, Robin Gattaro. Anyone on this? Oh, I'm sorry, and our Student Representative, Jamie Silva. Everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next meeting of our committee is scheduled for Thursday, January 9th at 6:30 at the Somerset Berkeley Regional High School Library here on County Street. First section of the agenda is Student Achievement, Teaching and Learning, and item number 1 is a Student Representative Report from Jamie Sylvia. Ms. Sylvia?
Hi, I'm Janie Sylvia. I'm the Senior Class President here at SB. So last week we had the documentary play Screenagers by Delaney Rustin. So she is a documenter and doctor over in California, and here with the Anti-Bullying Coalition with Ms. Nassif as leader, we go out to schools and we do peer-to-peer presentations rather than teacher to student presentations. So she really liked how we were teaching about how to use technology in a more effective and more positive way. So she reached out to us and we were actually featured in the movie. So all the students got to watch that during Blue Radio Blocks. Also, winter sports started last week, and Big Buddy was also doing things with the 8th graders. So the 8th graders were coming up and shadowing a Big Buddy and going through their classes with them from last week and this week. We just finished up. And yeah. Any questions?
Did we have students from both Somerset and Berkeley?
Yes, both the middle schools, and it was all the 8th grades. They came on different day.
My daughter, she participated, I think, on Friday. I just want you to know, or if you could share with Mrs. Nassif, I believe she runs that program.
Yes.
She came into home. Oh, I can't wait to get there. Can't wait to get
Good,
there. So,
good.
and I think I like that they are doing it now earlier, because I think students are going to be preparing themselves with classes they want to pick. So I think that's very helpful. And then the other thing is, I know like Diamond and other school districts have had in their open house, so it was great that they were able to come here and actually spend the day with the students. So for the administration, I think it's a great program and something that you should definitely keep going, because it's promoting our school, and middle schoolers love being with seniors and things like that. They just love being with the bigger kids, or the older kids. So.
And I know that I believe Ms. Nassif's going there next week to help them pick classes for their 8th grade, I believe, right, Mr. Singh? Do you know?
Picking classes probably not
Or
yet,
like
but maybe
their
talking about
Yeah.
different opportunities.
So she wanted to do it beforehand, that way they could see like what the expectation is in each level for here.
I should know this, but is there an event where Berkeley students and our something to get together, like a social event, prior to coming here? Is there no?
No, there hasn't been in recent years.
Maybe we can do them.
The Best Buddies used to organize something in the late summer.
Yeah, there's 2 days in the summer where all the kids will come in and you can sign up. So if Somerset and Berkeley kids signed up on the same day, then
Yeah, maybe that's when it is.
So, and we do like skits. I'm sure you guys see pictures on Twitter.
Okay, yeah.
They'll do like a
That's
5-10 minute skit, and then, yeah. So it's really fun.
It is voluntary. Do you recall from previous years about how many students attend?
I don't know exactly, maybe around 60 each day. So there's a decent amount, and I know that more kids like it because it's not like a hardcore thing. It's like more fun, just getting to know each other. So I'll miss that this year.
Thanks, Jamie.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? Thank you for your report. Under item number 2, acknowledgement of Doug Chapman, High School Tennis Coach of the Year. So in your packets this evening is an article that ran in the Spectator on Wednesday, November 20th, congratulating our tennis coach, Doug Chapman, for winning the National High School Tennis Coach of the Year Award. Because it was pertinent and it happened recently, we wanted to provide this information to the committee. Mr. Chapman is unable to attend this evening. He will be attending our meeting in February. So it'll be great to see him at our February 6th meeting, and certainly give him heartfelt congratulations for such a prestigious award. So I don't know if anyone else has any comment at this time.
I want to say, Mr. Chair, that what I like about his philosophy, he involves everybody. Everybody makes the team. And I just think that's so good because it's to be included, everybody, and part of a team, and just a good feeling no matter what level of play you have to be on the team. So I think that's awesome.
And the only thing I could add is that he is well respected by other coaches as well. You know, every time I'll meet a tennis coach, either if it's Fall River or Victor Augusta and Dayton Rehoboth, they always speak great things. So well deserved.
I for one will say that I'm looking forward to seeing him on February 6th.
And with the level of this kind of award, it's great that we're mentioning it twice. So now and then again.
Item number 3 is Superintendent's Report. Mr. Schoonover?
Thank you, Mr. Larrabee. Just a few quick things. First, more informational today. I had the pleasure of attending an event at Stonehill College with the South Coast Educational Collaborative. It's our December meeting is the annual meeting. In addition to a regular board meeting, we also have an awards luncheon for each member district's, a top student in each member district, not necessarily the #1 student, the current #1 student, but today I did present, along with Mr. Lenziski, the Superintendent's Excellence Award to Jacob Milan, who is currently the top-ranked member of this year's senior class at Somerset Berkeley. So it was a great event, and congratulations to Jake for receiving that. I was going to talk about grade 8 transitions, Janie, so I'm glad you did. And certainly not only with what Janie said, with the open house that took place on November 20th, and then with the shadowing that took place 3 days this week, 3 days last week, it helps to promote the school, and as Mr. Machado said, at this time of the year when students are determining which high school they want to go to, it's nice for them to experience this school as well. As you know, 2 years ago we started the open house in November. That was the first time we did it. But the shadowing days also typically occur in May. So we also wanted to bring that up into 6 months or so into November, December timeframe, so that they would also have that full day experience. And we know that the transition from 8th grade to 9th grade is a big one, and events like this just really help students, release, get rid of some of that anxiety that they have experiencing a full day here. So I'm glad to see that students reported good days, those who attended. I did give a few pieces of information to you. One is a letter that the Commissioner Riley sent to superintendents regarding the Student Opportunity Act. I will not go into the whole thing. I'm sure that you have read a little bit about the Student Opportunity Act. We're still awaiting for the details to come from this, but at least this one, with all of the articles that I've read, I think the Commissioner summarized the key points fairly well here, so I thought it would be something that you may be interested in. On that bottom of the first page, the 5th bullet, district evidence-based 3-year plans. This is something that is new, so just calling special attention to this. Each superintendent in consultation with the local school committee must develop a 3-year evidence-based plan to address persistent disparities in achievement among student subgroups. So that is something that we are supposed to have in place by April 1st of 2020. Like I said, there's been no guidance on that, but that is something that we will have to quickly develop But it's also, just happens to be, at the same time, we're gonna be conducting some work for our strategic plan. So we'll be gathering some input and looking at data at the same time we're supposed to be developing this. Certainly, I know as members of the school committee with your fiscal responsibilities, where I'm sure we're all interested to find out exactly how the 1.5 billion will be impacting Somerset Berkeley. But we'll be finding that. I'm sure Satara will start to receive some cherry sheets from the state in the coming weeks or month or two. Okay, and then lastly, I'm sorry? Yes.
I listened to Senator Roberts on today's WSIR show between 3 to 5 or 4 to 5, whatever it was. He talked about some money being distributed this fiscal year. Are you hearing anything about that, or?
Not yet, but as the chair of the Ways and Means Committee, he's a good source of that information. So if he's saying
Well,
it,
he did talk about the gateway cities getting, yearly, a little bit of piece of that, 1.5 billion. He talked about 269 million maybe this year.
right, it's going to be phased in over a 7-year period. So it's not all going to be 1.5 billion this year, but there will be some impact, from what I understand. But there really hasn't been any details yet coming forward.
I wonder, I didn't hear Senator Rogers on the radio today, but we did get an email from the Association of Regional School Committees about the supplemental budget that was just passed, and there were additional funds for this fiscal year in several different categories. Additional circuit breaker funds, a significant amount for charter schools, regional transfer. There was some increase in regional transportation. So I think those are funds that will be available this year, but I don't know how much of it will come to us. That wasn't clear, but that information. I'm not sure if everyone is on the email list for the Association of Regional School Districts, but they do have some useful correspondence. So I encourage anyone to just go on the site and get on the email list.
If I may, real quick, Mr. Carroll, we expect the cherry sheet sometime in mid to late January, correct?
I'm not sure when they release it. Since this is my first year, I'm not sure if it's.
Sorry, that wasn't a fair question.
No, that's all right.
Welcome to
but now I know it may be coming out sometime in January.
Yeah, from my days on the finance committee, I remember they came out somewhere around Martin Luther King Day. So.
I think the governor is required by law, except in his first year in office, to have his budget, by sometime in mid-January.
Okay, in addition to that, but also connected to the district evidence-based 3-year plans about addressing those disparities, in combination with the tiered focus monitoring visit that we just had from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. There are some things that we're going to have to be looking at in terms of disparity with discipline. I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some data that I was pulling, that you can begin to see some of the disparities that exist between all students, and particularly the economically disadvantaged population, also students with disabilities. So in front of you, you have some discipline data, attendance data, and the grade 9 course passing rates, which DESE started tracking last year. So first for discipline, and this is something that Ms. Ashton and I heard from the team from DESE. Looking at at these numbers, you can see that in 2019, 6.3% of our students received out-of-school suspensions, overall 6.3%. But you can see that students who are economically disadvantaged were at 11% rate, and students with disabilities were at a 14% rate. So this is information that we really need to start digging into and develop plans to address this and begin to close that gap.
And Jeff, 50%
of the out-of-school suspension is for non-drug, non-violent,
Correct.
non-criminal offenses.
Yes. And I have a breakdown of every conduct, in every incident from last school year, the 1,846 different incidents. Now that they were all suspensions, this is just everything from tardies, so we can begin to look at that and figure out which ones of those resulted in these 81 incidents of suspension. So most of our disciplines do not result in suspension, but we do have 81 incidents involving 68 students. Yeah, you can see the breakdown of some of the more, the larger categories of where those suspensions were, for what reasons they were occurring.
Did you say 67 students?
68, it's, I have it in that, the lower left-hand corner of that discipline box. And this is all information that's available publicly on the school profile page on the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed website. The next one, if you look at the attendance, again, just looking for some trends too, and discrepancies that exist between all students and those two subgroups. First, I want to acknowledge, you can see some significant changes that took place, and we've talked about this in the past. I went back to 2012, the first year of Somerset Berkeley, the regional school district, just to show whether it's percent of students who are chronically absent, percent of students who are absent 10 or more days, the daily attendance, and then the average number of days absent per student. You can track those, and you can see that in 2015 is when we really reached our peak for poor attendance. 25% of our students were chronically absent, 50% of our students were absent 10 or more days. After that, I think it was in the 2017 school year is when we implemented the new attendance policy. You can see the drastic decreases that took place for all students in each of those four categories. Mainly the percent of students who are chronically absent and percent of students absent 10 or more days, going from 50% to 28% in that last category. The numbers have crept up a little bit over the past 2 years, still significantly less than what it was at one point. But when you pull in 2018 and 2019, this is when the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed started tracking not just the all students category, but the subgroups. You can see how where the same numbers for economically disadvantaged students and students with disabilities, how they compare to all students. Okay. And lastly,
Can I just ask?
yes,
Is this data available for other surrounding school districts?
yes, every school district, every school and every school district in the state. If you go to the school profiles, school and district profiles page, through a drop-down menu, you can identify any school out there.
And this doesn't have by grade, does it?
It does not break it down by grade, it's by, just for the entire
Does the
school.
data, could we tell from the data
I could go in, I
what
can
the
have,
attendance rate is for freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and
we
seniors?
can dig deeper and do that within our own, within Aspen, our student information system.
And I'm just assuming that there's kind of like a line that runs up with freshmen probably attending at the highest level up to seniors being absent more than
Yeah.
other classes. And I'd just like to see that because it can be a focus of how we address the issue, perhaps.
Yeah, we do have that information, and in fact, yesterday, with the full day of school that Somerset Berkeley had in Somerset, several of our neighbors, Fall River, Taunton, they had a 2-hour delay, and superintendents last night were all communicating about what our rates were for yesterday. wanting to see how does a delay impact attendance. The group that I was communicating with were more of the urban districts, so it might not be a very fair comparison to begin with. But many of the districts had attendance rates yesterday of, I'd say between 80 and 84%, I think was the average. And for us, our seniors and juniors yesterday were at about 93, 94% attendance. And our freshmen and sophomores were a few percentage points higher than that, 95, 96% attendance. So the snow didn't affect, but we did see that there is that slight difference between the grades. Freshmen always have the best attendance, and it slowly drops. Not by much, but it does.
And I had mentioned at a previous meeting, it might be a topic that the school council could take up, particularly the teacher's perspective on this, and a lot of the changes that we made to our attendance policy came from the teachers and their concerns about when we were up at 25%. So if they have any observations about this kind of slow creep, it is a slow creep from 9.5 to 11.9, but still it's trending up. So if through that, the advisory council or any other mechanism that we might have available to get teacher input on this issue, just to make sure we're staying on top of this.
Okay. Yeah, and lastly, you have the grade 9 course passing rates. I just thought I'd share that with you as well. It breaks it down. I was able to include our female and male population here. But you can see it is broken down by subject matter. The first set of bars that you have represent all subjects for each of the 6 categories. All students, female, male, high needs, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities. If you recall, the high needs subgroup actually includes economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and English learners. So that is a larger group consisting of those 3 smaller groups. But for all students, you can see that just about 70% of all freshmen last year passed all of their courses. So flipping that around, obviously, 30% of freshmen failed at least one class. When you look at across the board, you compare female to male students, and our female students are pretty significantly performing at higher levels consistently, about 15 percentage points higher than our male students. Male students, I think the average was about 60, actually I have it in the bottom left. 62% of our male students are passing all courses, and female freshmen, 77.5%. So there's a pretty good difference between the two. But then when you look at the other 3 subgroups, even if we just focus on the green bar, high needs, you can see that 60% of students classified as high needs failed at least one class as freshmen. So there is a significant difference between all students and high needs, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities. And in fact, students with disabilities, that is the lowest. I think it was about 65% of freshmen with disabilities failed at least one class. So that's the type of information that we're going to be addressing through our district improvement plan. It's what we have to address we have to do this work based on the recent visit with DESE, but we have to do the work because it's the right work that we need to do to address what's happening here. So I just thought that information is something that would be of interest to you. And in the blue box, I just wanted to indicate the research, and this is why the Department of Ed focused on grade 9 course passing rates. This isn't part of the accountability system. It almost was, but they chose to track the data without really counting the data for us. But a 9th grade student who fails one class decreases his chances of graduating by 30 points. A freshman who fails at least 2 classes has about a 50%, the probability of graduating on time or graduating at all is about 50 percentage points lower. So it's a major influencer for students graduating and having success in high school, which is why it's one of those pieces of information that we're tracking.
Can I ask a question? So you mentioned a couple of instances that have kind of drawn a light on this data or forced you to really pull that out, that visit from DESE and all of that. Do you now, what is the district's administration response to start looking at that? Have you assigned a task force? Is it part of your normal day-to-day or monthly meetings? How are you?
We just started looking, we looked at this data at our last leadership meeting this past Friday.
Oh, okay,
So we have to figure out what those next steps are,
okay,
but we have started that process.
okay. So, I mean, obviously, we'd all be interested in it, so
Yes.
listening to what you all develop and test out and see. And I'm sure you'll be looking at other best practices throughout the country, I would imagine, to try to address that.
Correct.
I'm assuming that CS is
Computer science.
Is any insight as to why the passing rates in computer science seem to be significantly lower than most of the other subject matter?
No, not yet.
Okay. Something you'll look into though?
Absolutely.
But it's also fair to say that that's fairly new curriculum that's been introduced. Most of the kids taking that have not had any previous K through 8 instruction in that area.
Last year was the first year that we had an introductory computer science class that was required by all freshmen. So we had that. We also have some other computer science classes, and there are a few other courses that get pulled into the computer science as well. So yes, there's part of it is new. We have been building the computer science program before they get, at least in Somerset, before the students come to the high school. But still, I don't want to speculate too much. We have to figure that out.
Okay. Thank you.
So superintendent, at the middle school, there's no computer science courses?
We've started introducing with the technology class that all students take each year. We have been building computer science units into each year
At the middle school?
at the middle school.
Thank you.
In fact, computer science is starting. If you go into our elementary technology classes, you will see students beginning to code and work on basic computer science skills early on. That's all for me.
Can I just ask one other, going back to this discipline data, I'm wondering if there's overlap in the economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities categories.
They're absolutely, a student can be economically disadvantaged and have an IEP and does count for both. That's why when you look at the high needs category, it takes into account all of those factors for a single student. But yes, there is certainly overlap between those two categories.
Is there any way to have another column that would show the overlap?
Yeah, we can do that. It's not available where this information came from, but we can go into our student information system and identify students who are considered one or the other or both.
Thanks.
Any other questions for the superintendent? Thank you, Mr. Schoonover.
You're welcome. Oh, if I can just add,
Ooh, bonus.
the 4.9% on the light orange bar represent bullying. So at our last meeting, Mr. Pierce asked about incidents of bullying last year. Those were 4 incidents that resulted in out-of-school suspension related to bullying.
Thank you, Mr. Schoonover. Under informational updates, item number 1, Superintendent Goals Evaluation Subcommittee.
Thank you. So we met yesterday and took some time to compare the updated rubric that has been put forth by DESE to what was used last year. And what we did is we took time to align the rubric that has been updated to the actual goals that we all approved for the superintendent this year. We only met yesterday, so I apologize, we were not able to get a revised rubric out to everybody, but I will tell you the plan. So the plan is to get out the revised rubric to all of you sometime next week, early next week, and you'll have that. And we'll ask you to keep that in mind as you review the goals. At our January 9th meeting, Superintendent Schoonover will, in advance of that, but at that meeting, we'll go over and provide us with kind of an evidence that shows the progress he's made towards all of those goals. So we're hoping that, and we're going to ask all the school committee members to keep to a tight time frame. We're going to give ourselves 2 weeks to, after following that presentation, to review the data, and usually we have it electronically as well, and complete our evaluations and submit them to Robin. With the idea, if this all goes well, that we will have the evaluation at our public meeting in February. So trying to keep it to as close to the timeline as we suggested. So I just want to give that out to me. I know people were at the subcommittee meeting yesterday. I don't know if I missed anything. If you want to add it, if there are any questions or concerns about that timeline, I'd be happy to entertain those.
I think the timeline is doable, and I do think that given all the work that we need to do, that it's sensible for us to try to get it done in February. So just ask everyone to just be honest if there's something that comes up that's going to prohibit you from being able to get that time frame. Life is life, but we'll do everything we can to try to stay as close to it as we can so we can do this in February.
Okay. All right, thank you. That's it.
Next item under informational updates is Strategic Planning Subcommittee. Mrs. Gagliardi.
Oh, actually, I'm going to defer that to, I came late to that meeting, so
Okay.
I'm going to defer to Mrs. Steele.
So we met to talk about the strategic planning session. I know at your previous meeting, it was decided that Tony Bent would be the facilitator for that event. We have been able to identify 2 dates that he would be able to come and do that for us. It would be January 25th with a snow date of February 1st. The subcommittee also discussed a list of potential stakeholders that we would have and that we would invite to the strategic session in January. We will put together that list and circulate that out to the group once we have that set. So if anybody does have any recommendations or suggestions as to who they would like to have, please send them over to Mr. Schoonover for that. Mr. Bent will propose an agenda for everybody to review. So when we have that, again, that will be circulated. And the subcommittee was interested in making sure that we incorporate requirements for the Opportunity Act. So as Mr. Schoonover just reported, there is accountability pieces that come with the funding from the Opportunity Act. So as a strategic plan, we're going to want to make sure that we hit upon those points so that we can incorporate it in our strategic plan going forward. That we'll also be looking at the vision of the graduate, which is a new NEAS component that will be part of the agenda as well. And if there are any other key issues that we need to support the vision of the graduate, we're asking that we get them in by Tuesday, December 17th.
So that's basically everything we discussed, but just to be clear, so if there are, so the overarching theme for the strategic planning visioning system will be the vision of the graduate. But we want to target some specific things. We want to give Mr. Bent some questions or topics that we want to explore. So if you have any suggestions for those topics, the reason why we picked Tuesday, correct me if I'm wrong, is because Mr. Superintendent Schoonover will be meeting with Tony Bent or talking to him. So we want to be able to give him all the different topics up front. So can we forward that information to you, those suggestions? And then we're going to let him kind of take all those ideas, incorporate that into an agenda that then we can look at. So we want to give you all enough time to, if by Tuesday you could forward to Superintendent Schoonover your particular thoughts, and there may be duplicates, and that's fine, you can read through that. Actually, that's good if there's duplicates, but that will only help to inform what the agenda will look like.
Either Mrs. Field or Mrs. Gagliardi, do either one of you want to comment on the stakeholders that we're seeking to have as far as the makeup of the tables? Because I know we had talked a little bit about having students and professionals, so I don't know if you want to comment on that.
Sure, so I think we were targeting, and this was a suggestion by the facilitator, between 50 and 60, but obviously that number's not set in stone. But some of the stakeholder groups that we talked about were teachers and administrators, students, including alumni and current students, school committee members, members from higher ed, town officials from both towns, town planner, people from the Education Foundation. Also some other key people within town, whether they're business people or people that may hold some other areas. We would obviously invite Representative Haddad. We would also invite people from the Berkeley community that have participated as well. So if there's anybody that you think that might add a perspective to this project, please just send along your requests.
Thank you.
I'm pointing to Janie saying,
Janie.
telling her
Yeah.
Janie was on the list.
Oh, January 25th.
Yeah.
Write that in your calendar. Okay.
It's a Saturday. There'll be food there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is a report from the OPEB subcommittee.
Okay, so the OPEB Board of Trustees, which is all of two of us, just met prior to this meeting. We are developing funding models for OPEB at the auditor's request. Last time we did our audit, it was a request from the auditor that we develop a funding model for OPEB. So the OPEB Board of Trustees has been coming up with various models and working with Ron. We narrowed it down to a couple of models that will go to the budget subcommittee for review next week, and then we'll bubble up to the full committee for final approval. OPEB also looked at the actuarial report, so we know what our current value is or what our current obligation is, liability is. We do need to approve that as a committee. So at our next meeting in January, included in your materials will be that report, and then Dean and I will do a brief presentation on the actuarial report from June 2019 on our OPEB. Dean, anything that I forgot? No?
Any questions? Comments? Okay, thank you, Mrs. Field.
You're welcome.
Next item on the agenda, under informational updates, is budget subcommittee.
I'd like to defer this report with Mr. Tara's permission. I think we're better off making that report after we meet next week, unless
Yeah,
you
we're
have
meeting
it.
on the 19th. So other than, not related to the subcommittee, we did start the budget process already, so we're working on retooling how we do the budget process internally and working collectively with the administrators across K-8 and the region.
Okay, great. So
Is there a meeting next week?
there is a meeting on
19th.
19th.
Okay. Okay.
Meeting of the budget subcommittee.
The budget subcommittee is meeting. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Next item on the agenda is policy subcommittee. Mrs. Field?
Okay, so policy also met earlier today. There's really no report except that you will have a number of policies for first read at the January meeting. And that's pretty much it. That's a brief report.
And the last item, any questions or comments? Last item under the informational updates is Mark Center bullying. Mr. Schoonover?
Thank you. Just a couple of dates to inform you about. January 14th will be the evening that the Mark Center is coming to Somerset Berkeley to give a presentation to parents and the community about bullying. So I believe the start time will be 6 p.m., but we just have to confirm that. So that, I believe that's a Tuesday night, Tuesday the 14th. And at that time, there was very little availability in January, so that was one that that I had to grab. And then on January 6th, it's not really related to the power presentation, but the Mark Center will be coming in district and working with two or three representatives from each of the 5 schools to train the trainer, professional development, so that we have our in-house staff members trained in certain forms of anti-bullying training, so that we can provide ongoing professional development when it's needed, when we have new staff coming in and so on. So we will have, I think we have 10 to 12 people in all between the 2 districts participating in that training. Okay?
Is the school committee, I know we had talked about having,
Following the presentation.
it will be following the presentation.
I think having it before, I know, we want to make sure that we're targeting a time that's good for parents, not
Okay.
doing it too late. And I know that if we were to have the meeting with school committee before then, it causes some problems with several of you getting here at that time. So I think having it afterwards would be best.
Okay, great.
And before we leave informational updates, if I could double back to strategic planning just very briefly. We had mentioned the dates were January 25th and February 1st. The event is going to take place between 8-ish and 3-ish.
3, yeah.
Okay.
8 to 3.
So it is, for folks who are going to be attending, it is a pretty full day of events. That's part of the reason we have food, is because of the fact that it's 8 hours long. So,
Well, and when I speak with Dr. Bent on next Wednesday, we'll find out exactly from when he's done this very recently in a few other districts about how long it actually requires.
Okay.
It might not be 8 to 3 or 9 to 3. Maybe it could be trimmed back a little bit, but I'll have more information the next time we meet.
fantastic. But we are grateful for anyone who's willing to participate, because
Absolutely.
it is a long but worthwhile day. Or
Yes.
maybe not long, but a worthwhile day.
Productive day.
Yeah, there we go.
Raise another question about the MARC presentation. Have we considered the marketing plan, to try to get maximum turnout?
I believe the event that we had here that Janie talked about a little while ago, the Screenagers documentary, I think that had a pretty good turnout, so we're going to try to model what Mrs. Nassif did in marketing that. And we also, with that, communicated it to other districts as well, because we want to make sure that it's really open up to the broader community. But we will be frequently informing parents of that. We'll have several different forms of communication about the event.
Anything else under that? Moving on to the next section, budget and financial matters. Item number 1, approval of monthly invoices for the purposes of educational supplies and materials, professional development, special education tuitions and transportation, maintenance costs, fringe benefits, and other operating expenditures. So we have several warrants this evening that require our signature. Does anyone have any questions for administration on those warrants? Hearing none, I'll ask that everyone sign the warrants before you leave this evening. Thank you. Next item is item number 2, discussion on signing of bill warrants, or let's try this again. Discussion on signing of bill schedule warrants. Mr. Pierce?
Well, this was discussed at the policy subcommittee, and there is a statute that in Massachusetts that allows a regional school district to designate one member to sign warrants. But at the same time, it indicates that the committee continues to have responsibilities. So at the policy subcommittee, it was suggested that we prepare a draft policy that would permit one member, perhaps the chair or the chair of the budget subcommittee, to be able to sign payroll warrants or emergency warrants, but generally to leave the process that we have otherwise in place. So we're going to prepare a written policy for the next meeting of the policy subcommittee, and that will be presented to this committee.
Okay.
Any questions on that?
Yeah.
Comments?
So it won't be two, it'll be just one person? Or can it be two?
Well, I think that the policy hasn't been developed yet.
Okay.
The conversation was to have,
A designated?
yeah, designated and a backup. So,
Any other questions on comments? Next item is custodial staffing review. Mr. Schoonover?
Actually, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Tara.
Yeah, sure. Mr. Campos apologized, he was not able to come to tonight's meeting. But we did kind of spend a little time looking at staffing levels and came up with a strategy that we wanted to share with you before we started. Casey is a supplier of cleaning supplies and materials. They also offer a service that comes in and they evaluate staffing needs based on building square footage, the expectation of cleanliness, and they would also look at the outside of the building, what the needs would be and what the staffing needs would be. So we had contacted them to get us a quote to see what it would be to do that assessment. You know, assessing yourself is one thing, but having somebody as a third party come in, evaluating what your needs are and giving us an unbiased perspective on what our true needs are. So the cost for that is about $1,800, and we would just have to determine if we have enough money allocated somewhere within a line item within the budget to go forward with that assessment, if that's something the school committee would like to see done. And if not, we can approach it a different way as well.
I mean, I think that having a third party look at it, it really is, it would be building-based and facility-based rather than personnel-based. So, you know, I think it's important to start personally with the aspects of the facility and the building and looking at all of that. And if they are comparing that to similar properties that they manage, I think that would be really good information for us to evaluate as we look at staffing. I think it would be well worth our investment and the time to have it.
I think you should make a motion to that effect.
Yeah, but just for discussion, if I could, now, what will this assessment tell us? I mean, like, how many people per shift? Or?
It's good. The way it was explained to us, it would look at the square footage of the building and how many classrooms are in the building, how many baskets. They would go down to that detail. And then we could establish baselines as far as what our expectation is for cleanliness. Similar to hiring outside companies to do cleaning, you have different levels of cleanliness. You have hospital grade, and you go down a little bit low and a little bit lower. Knowing the expectations of the school committee, you probably want hospital grade, but I'm not sure if we can afford that. So they would do that type of an assessment based on the level of cleanliness and expectation we would have for our building. I don't know if that answers your question.
I think it should be done, but I mean, like, who knows the building and facilities better than like a Carlos, you know?
Well, they'd have to engage Carlos in this process. They can't just go and do this because he has to walk these buildings, has to walk the grounds. He can tell them what our staffing levels are right now, how the staffing is allocated, beginning of the day, end of the day, during the summer. They have to have all that information to put this in a model.
Mr. Taro, would they also in the assessment say how long work orders should be outstanding for, like no more than 90 days, or that depends on the work order also?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're gonna get into that, level, but they'll probably look at our process as far as work orders. One of the things I want them to look at is the software we're using to track work orders. As I mentioned, it's a free program that's not that robust. It's not user-friendly. It's very difficult to get reports out and kind of start looking at the data analytically and laterally to see how we're doing across the board. So they may have a tool that they offer. There's other tools out there. So that's one of the things I hope we can get out of this as well.
Thank you.
Good. I'm not sure if their evaluation would include this, but I would hope that they could look at whether we have the equipment that we need. You know, you kind of have a trade-off. If you don't have a high level of equipment, then you need more personnel. And one of the things I've been concerned about is whether we have adequate equipment outside. We have some expansive areas of grass, and cutting that with a relatively small mower is rather inefficient and takes a lot more time than if you have the proper equipment. And obviously it's a balance between the cost of the equipment and the cost of personnel, but generally equipment costs are significantly less. They're one-time kinds of things versus personnel. And then the other aspect is training. We have a groundskeeper. I don't think we've ever provided that person with any training. So those are two areas that I would hope they look at, so that we know we're doing things as efficiently as possible also.
I'll verify what's included if that is. They did talk about equipment, more like floor scrubbers and stuff like that, but when it's outside, what type of lawnmowers, what type of equipment they have, so I'll verify that.
But you did include an outside assessment as well.
It's both inside and outside, yes.
Mr. Terrell, do you have any experience with this kind of service in your other capacity in other districts?
Other districts, it was an outside company who cleaned, my most recent district that I left from, there was a outside agency who did clean the building, and they had different grades of cleanliness, and not the level of expectations have to be raised a little bit, and I think that's what was coming out of that. So, but as hiring outside companies to do contracted services, we've done certain things, but not to this level. This will be the first time I'm actually doing an assessment of what the building needs are.
And will this include specialty fields as well, like maintenance of the baseball field, or is that separate?
It should include everything.
Okay.
It should also, when you build a new building, and they know the middle schools, on the forefront of the district, what type of staffing levels do you have in the building that has the expertise needed to operate the building?
Mm-hmm.
Cleaning a floor sometimes isn't just cleaning a floor, there's the right way and the wrong way. So those are some of the things I hope that we come out of this, the right type of cleaning solutions, the right type of cleaning. I think, truthfully, it's a short period of time, I think the guys do an amazing job keeping this building the way they do, inside and out. And, Jeff and I have helped maybe crack the whip a little bit, but they're on top, they're on task. So hopefully this report will give us the information we need to make a good budget decision. So.
Great.
I don't know if I can get away with squeezing this question into the agenda topic, but what is the situation with the fence on County Street?
Good question. Actually submitted a claim to the motorist who caused the damage. We did contact our insurance company. Obviously, because of our deductible, it's not covered, but they did help provide some guidance. I submitted the accident report and the photos to our insurance company. Her insurance company, the person who caused the damage, claim is filed. They contacted me yesterday after completing some paperwork, and we already have quotes, so that's in motion to be repaired.
I'll make a motion to authorize the Director of Business and Finance to proceed with entering into an agreement with the KC Company to do an assessment of our facilities.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, Mr. Terrell.
Thank you.
Good job.
Next section of the agenda, under other matters and information. Item number 1, Somerset and Berkeley K-8 updates.
Can I have Mr. Galaducci speak first?
Absolutely.
Be happy to. Number one, we are working with MSBA. We're doing a statement with them, and they have one report from us, but now we have to submit another report, but this is in reference to our community school. So I will keep you posted and let you know what does happen, because we do have to submit another report by Friday, February 14th of 2020. And so this will be all the repairs that need to be done to the community school. The other things that are happening is our chorus concert is tomorrow evening. If any of you are interested in going to hear our chorus concert. That's going to be at 6:30 p.m. at the middle school tomorrow evening. Our senior dinner, which the middle school students work over for the senior holiday dinner, where our senior citizens come in for a noon luncheon on Saturday, and our 8th graders and our 7th graders set up the tables, escort the people to their positions for those that are in wheelchairs or have, you know how it is with older people. And I'm one of them, but I can walk, I can handle it, it's no problem for me. We're also having a blood drive at the school on 12/17 from 2 to 7 p.m. where donors can go in and give their blood donation. Again, that's at the middle school. And
Mr.
both
Modici,
staff.
can I
Yes,
just ask, that senior dinner, that's actually a luncheon for?
it's a luncheon for senior citizens.
That
There's no
happens
charge.
During the school day or on the weekend?
No, it's on Saturday.
Saturday.
It's on Saturday. Yeah. And in fact, Mr. Bianco has had students perform a couple of times at our luncheons that we've
Oh,
had.
nice.
The seniors will generally bring in some entertainment. There'll be a form of entertainment. It's a buffet setup.
Okay.
It's been going on since the 80s. When I was school committee chairman, we began the senior luncheon, and it's been carried on since the 80s. So
Yes.
seniors always look forward to it. And they get to see people they haven't seen over the year, and so, you know, it's a gab fest and fun, and they have prizes that they give away and drawings, so it works out very nice. It's a happy day for the seniors. And I'm sure Dean is anxious to get to that age level. Okay. The Berkeley Community School Vendor and Craft Fair was held on November 23rd. It was a highly successful event that featured over 90 vendors. Great feedback was received from vendors and shoppers alike. Many thanks to all the volunteers, in particular all our PTO folks who worked the event. And the volunteers generally raise a sufficient amount of money. Over the years, they've provided all the whiteboards. There's a whiteboard in every room in the community school, thanks to them. And they bought computers for the school also. So they do a wonderful job. The report cards have been sent out for grades K to 4. Following the distribution of report cards, parent-teacher conferences were held on November 25th. Conferences were very well attended, and the staff really appreciates all the parents coming in and doing their job to work with the students and be aware of what their report cards were, and they have discussions with the teachers, and they look for comments from the parents as well as the children. And the quarterly review of attendance, our K-4 school is working very hard on improving attendance from the students. So far, they have 73 students who have earned perfect attendance thus far this year. So they hope to increase that for each year. Hopefully, more and more students will shoot for perfect attendance, and we're very happy to see this going on. At the faculty meetings on the early release day held on November 30th, staff worked on a variety of initiatives. The staff involved in leading our positive behavior intervention support, and the staff that is working with my review reading program, this is printed by the principal, worked on curriculum development. The annual pre-Thanksgiving grade 4 state floral parade rolled through the Berkeley Community School on the day before Thanksgiving. They put on a regular parade through the whole school, and the students create their floats, and so they have a great time doing it, and everyone has a good time, and it's right before the holiday, so they're all in a good mood. Our 4th grade students, under the direction of Mrs. Reynolds, participated in the Lights On celebration of December 8th that was held at the Town Common, and that's an annual event, and usually our students do participate and sing along with them. And on Thursday, December 12th, the Berkeley Community School will have PJ Day to thank the students for box top collections, as well as to be ready for the story time with Santa that evening. We will hold a Student of the Month brunch on the 12th as well. From our community school. In the middle school, Our student staff had a great Thanksgiving break, spending time with family and friends. We completed a wonderful food drive that helped to support the local families through the Open Shelves Food Pantry in Berkeley by collecting canned goods and non-perishable food items along with a monetary donation. Our basketball team is now starting their season. They're performing and they'll be competing against other middle schools in the area. And on December the 8th, members of the Berkeley Middle School Band performed at this year's annual Lights On ceremony, which is held again this year at the Berkeley Middle School and ended on on our own Berkeley Common, and the students worked very hard to prepare for this special evening. Our 10th annual Holiday Chorus concert was held on Friday, December 13th. That's if you're willing to attend, that's tomorrow evening. We are proud of all our students have accomplished, and under the exceptional leadership of our music director, this is a program that continues to grow and flourish. All of the 8th graders attended the Somerset Berkeley Big Buddy Day at the Somerset Berkeley Meeting High School on 12/9 or 12/10. Our students were paired up with high school students and followed their schedule, as well as ate lunch in the cafeteria. That's always a big thrill for the kids to have lunch in the high school cafeteria. Our 8th graders were applied to BP also, so they did have some of the students who didn't come to Somerset Berkeley High School go over to BP to see part of what they had to offer. And part of our ongoing safety and security measures at the Berkeley Middle School, we have added identification system in the main office. Any visitor to our building will need to scan their license and need a visitor pass generated. We also had the K-9 units from 2 police departments on hand to do a safety sweep of our building this month. We continue to be thankful for the joint efforts of our local police and fire departments, and that all our collaboration brings to the work that we do. Our holiday vacation begins at the end of the day on Friday, December 20th, and they wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Thank you, Mr. Gilbertich.
As a member of the K-8 School Committee, I know I speak on the entire committee. At our special town meeting on December 2nd, all 4 of our articles were approved by the townspeople, so I do want to say thank you to our townspeople for supporting our articles and passing them. The library, George has a nice article in the Spectator this week about the Chase Street Library being rejuvenated, if that's the word. It is run by volunteers. In the last year and a half, they've brought in over 500 books for the children, all money raised through book fairs. So I guess for about a year and a half, the room that used to be, which is the library now, was being used for a technology class. So they were using that space. So it's up and running, and I'm sure it's very good for our students there. At all of our elementary schools, holiday string concerts will take place on December 18th by our 4th and 5th graders who do strings for the music department. So I'm sure they're all excited for next week, and they'll be anxious with the holidays right around the corner. Parent-teacher conferences were December 9th on Monday, and through the K-8 district. And also what took place on that day was our paras and our playground supervisors. I'm going to need the superintendent in a second to yield to him. On that day, they had Playworks Training. Could you explain Playworks to us?
Playworks is a company that comes into schools and helps schools better organize how they handle recess and that outdoor supervision, creating more structured programs for students. By doing so, schools that have implemented Playworks have seen significant reductions in bullying and conduct referrals that take place outside. You know, the unstructured time at the elementary levels tend to be where, if a situation is going to occur, it tends to be outside at recess. So anyway, it creates more structured play for students, getting more students engaged, building social skills, and it has significant improvements on the culture of whatever school that they tend to be in. So we did conduct that training for all 3 schools, and that was the first of several days of training for those people.
Thank you. This Saturday, December 14th, at the town library, there'll be a Reach Across America. All of our students from both North, Chase, and South, and the middle school will participate, and also the band from the high school will be there. That starts at 12 noon. We'll have a short ceremony that'll probably last about 12:30, and then most of the students will head on to designated cemeteries to put up wreaths for our veterans. So I think this is the 3rd or 4th year that we're doing that. So, and that's about it.
Thank you. Ms. Machado?
I'm just going to mention a couple of more things.
If I can, Mr. Machado, before you do, if I can just add to something that Mr. McDonald just said. Because the weather is not supposed to cooperate on Saturday, that event is actually going to take place here in the Performing Arts Center
Oh, okay.
at noon. And then before heading out to the ceremonies. So it is, we just learned of that just prior to this meeting starting.
Well, range in the forecast or something?
Yeah.
That's,
I guess we're only 24 hours out, so yeah. Thank you.
okay.
Have to
But,
dig out your poncho for the cemetery.
Yes. Thank you.
sorry, Mr. Machado.
No, that's fine. Great information. On December 16th, the Somerset School Committee, the Board of Selectmen, and the Somerset Middle School Building Committee, the MSBA Building Committee, we will be meeting together to vote on the PDP, the 3 options that we're going to be submitting to the state for either a renovation or a new middle school. So if you're able to attend, please do. The more information that people hear, and we'll be able to make a better decision moving forward. And the other thing that I would like to mention, last Friday and Saturday, Laurie Lee Dance Studio, they presented Frozen here at the high school. I'm biased, it was a great show. But what I wanted to share about this show, besides it was a great show in my opinion, but I had my in-laws who live in Berkeley, they came in here and they were wowed with our building. It was the first time they actually been in this building, so it's something that we should all be proud of, and which I know we all are. But the other thing that I was very proud of was our high school students. I've watched these high school students work with not only the middle school students and also elementary level students. We should be very proud of our high school students. They really, what a role model they were for these kids. It's something that I shared my thoughts with some of them, but not only our high school students, but also even Case students, because it was the Somerset, Swansea, local schools students. So great role models, how they really, even in the backstage and watching them, help the little kids, it was just great. It was something that made me very proud of. So, and I know another great actress that was on stage, Caroline, outstanding. So we should be very proud, and I am.
And one thing I will add to Victor's comments that I found really impressive about the group was that it did bring all the communities together, because it was kids from Swansea, Somerset, Berkeley. I think even outside of that, there was a few other communities, and they all worked together so well. They had started working on it in July,
Yes.
all the way through. So it was a great opportunity for kids to work with other kids in the area, but also to form friends from the other districts as well.
The other very good thing about it too is, for the audience, we had a lot of children in the audience, which is so wonderful to see, because it was a show that the younger people could enjoy. So this was an opportunity, and I think every year it's going to grow and grow, because, as they said, so everybody participates, and it was just wonderful. It was a fun, wonderful evening.
Very good. Anything more?
A couple of things I'd like to mention.
Under this or under?
Information regarding some events No, I mean, there are school events. So
Okay, go ahead.
I attended the wellness night for winter sports last night, and there were some events that are sponsored by the Somerset Berkeley Athletic Boosters Club that were announced tonight. Just wanted to make this information available to the public because the Boosters Club contributes a great deal to our sports programs. They're sponsoring an after-holiday unwind party with pub-style food, music, and dancing, and a silent auction. The date is not, oh, here it is.
It's in
Here it is.
photocopy well.
Yeah, January 25th at 6:30 PM.
Where?
And
Where is that?
The Fall River Elks.
The where?
I believe it's at the Fall River Elks Club.
yes, the Fall River Elks Club on North Main Street in Fall River. They're also sponsoring a Bowling for Boosters event on February 9th, Sunday, February 9th, at Brian's Family Amusement in Rainham. The cost of that is $20. And finally, they have a Diner for Two dining book that they're also offering for sale, and the proceeds will benefit our Somerset Berkeley Regional High School students. And information on all of these events is available on their I guess their email address, which is a Somerset Berkeley Regional email address, SBABC, which stands for Somerset Berkeley Athletic Boosters Club, at sbregional.org. So I encourage people to support our Boosters Club.
Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Anything more? Item number 2 is October Students of the Month. So this month we're recognizing, for the month of October 2019, we're recognizing Gavin Cabal in Social Studies, Julia Costa in English Language Arts, Corinne Foster in Science, Madison Gonsalves in Art, Maxwell Geronimo in Wellness, Kaylee McDonald in Mathematics, Devin Medeiros in Engineering/Technology, Diego João Tavares de Almeida Silva in Music, and Jordan Terrio in World Language. Congratulations to all our students of the month. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes of prior meetings. So this evening for approval, we have the open session minutes for November 21st, 2019. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? So I'd like to put this to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions?
I abstain.
One abstention and any opposed? So we have 6 in the affirmative and 1 abstention. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is topics not reasonably anticipated by the chair 48 hours in advance of the meeting, which there are none. Next item is action items for future meetings.
So we did mention that at the next meeting, we will have the evidence provided by the superintendent. So if, hopefully we'll get the rubric out to the committee along with a copy of the goals, superintendent's goals, so you can kind of have that in advance of the meeting. So if we could get that out to the group in advance of the meeting, that would be good. Oh, and one other action item would be the suggested names by Tuesday for the superintendent to consider, and suggested topics for consideration by the strategic planning.
Okay.
I had a quick conversation with the superintendent on Tuesday. After town meeting, we had, like Mr. McDonald's mentioned, we had a successful vote to increase our special ed funding because a couple of students were retained in the 8th grade. What I asked Mr. Suno if he could give us a report on the extra funding that the the region had received for those 2 students. Where do we anticipate using that money to benefit the special needs program, or is that something that we're just going to, keep in escrow or something for the following year or something like that? So
We'll have that information for the committee.
Fantastic. Any other items? Next item on the agenda is discussion regarding a letter to the editor on parking easements.
Yes, I had requested that we add this to our agenda. On November 27th, Mr. Machado submitted a letter to the editor around the issue of the easement. And as a committee member that has worked on this issue for a number of months, I have an issue with tying the easement to fees. And so I wanted to say that, for example, when we had a parking ban like we did yesterday for the snow, Mr. Lansinski had to send out an email to all of the students saying that even though there was school, there's no parking on that area, and that also includes Holland Drive as well and Prospect Street. So there really are ramifications to safety as it pertains to the easement. And I think that it's important that we clarify to the community that these are two separate issues, that it is a safety issue for the easement, and then we can have a discussion at the budget subcommittee level regarding fees. So I just felt that there needed to be clarification. I know it's usually not our norm to submit positions in the paper for letters to the editor. Mr. Machado, I would just ask going forward that if you have questions like that, if you bring it forward, maybe you didn't understand that there's no relationship between the safety and the fees, or that they're two separate issues. We're open to talking about it, but I do not think we do the public any justice at all by confusing the issue and doing that. And yesterday was a real example of that. So we were not able to, or if kids did park there, it was at their own risk. I had my constituents calling me asking for clarification. They were assuming that that area would be cleared. I think we just have to be very mindful of the conversation that we have. I am completely open to talking about fees. It's something that we would pull the administration in from. That fees, parking fees, are something that superseded us as a district. They were $10 for years. I believe when you served on K-8, they were paying for parking. We recently bumped it up to $50 because when we were going through our budget process, we were asked by the community to look at ways that we can start to offset some of these costs, and we are trying to do that. So I just wanted to bring that up. I know I wasn't at the last meeting. I know that there was a little bit of a discussion here, but going to town meeting and really seeing that there was not that understanding, or that you're accusing us as a committee of passing this easement just so we can collect another X amount of dollars, I just didn't think it was responsible and fair. Personally, after all the work that I've spent on this committee, I've always put safety first, and it was never in the guise of just collecting more money. So I just felt that I needed to say that, and I just wanted the community to know that there are ramifications for us not having an easement on some of these areas where kids park. And that's it.
I'll rebuttal quickly. I understand your frustration, but I, multiple times, 2 meetings in a row, I tried to address this issue in our level. Unfortunately, we all agreed to pass the buck to the subcommittee, which I could not attend, and I don't support. I believe if you're mentioning it's because of safety reasons, we haven't received a safety report yet, so I don't know how we can say it's a safety until we actually get the report and address these information. But I also think when it's something to do with safety, we shouldn't be out in the meeting saying that it's to control students. So the principal can have more authority over the students. That's not the purpose of this. If it's a safety, it should be about safety. And regardless, to me, whenever I think of anything to do with safety, that should be priority number one. And so as soon as any member question about, will there be fees, the answer should have been no. This is about safety. Of course, I can get that sort of, and I did warn this committee real quick. I would be out there fighting against this. And I did. I still am I'm pleased of the vote. Originally, I was going to put an indefinite postpone, but I wanted to, because I have parents, and I also have people that were sitting near me, and I've also, kids park in the street because they have to pay. Not a lot, and I think Mrs. McDonald or someone that was in the meeting that day don't feel that we should be controlling her kids, and I'm just trying to quote, I may not be quoting her correctly, and that her kids park outside because they don't want to pay the $50. We have a lot of students that come in here. I'm making it a mission of mine to eliminate those fees. I will fight for it. And then the other piece is when we talk about safety. I spoke to a neighbor of mine that lives on Riverside Street. Her son walks through through my street every morning to come to school, and it was snowing. And I asked the mother, not the child, I asked the mother, why does he walk to school? Why doesn't he take advantage of the bus? And she said something which kindly shocked me. We don't get off at the bus because we live too close to the school. I don't even know if that's true or not. I thought a couple of years ago when all the parents came in here, we made it clear that all students are eligible for the bus. At least that's what I thought. If that's not being communicated to parents. I can tell you right now, because that parent was communicated or they were told that it wasn't. So if we're worried about students, a safety reason of parking on Prospect Street and coming to the school from Prospect to here, well, I have concerns about a kid that lives on Riverside and has to walk to the school. So there's a lot more than discussion that I wasn't a part of, and I am a new member of this board, and I plan on being a member of this board for quite a while because I really do believe in what we do in the high school. But unfortunately, when I brought this up at the last meeting, this committee left me no option except to believe and continue to fight what I believe. Luckily, it made the paper because I didn't have to put it on social media. I'm a very vocal person. I believe in beliefs, and I think we should all have the right to do whatever we want. When it comes, this is a fight that I feel that needed to be fought. And besides that, I could not say it was a safety reason when I don't have the report in front of us yet. I haven't seen it, unfortunately. I haven't witnessed anything. The police department hasn't brought any concerns. I haven't had the safety committee here. All I'm hearing is we want to control our students because the principal has more authority over the police department. And with all due respect, I don't think that's our responsibility unless, if we want more parking, there's a lot of grass area in this property still. Why haven't we considered putting, I don't know, because I wasn't on the building committee. This is a bigger option that I think I need more information before I can stand up and defend it. So
You took it upon yourself to go against this committee that had discussions and put something in the paper that misled the community.
I do have a voice.
You
Right?
do have a voice.
And I will
But
use
you
it
also serve
consistently.
in a position where you take an oath to serve on a school committee and act in a certain way. And I do take umbrage. I hear your arguments. I agree. Yes, let's look at parking. Let's look at fees. Everything is on the table. But to have you twist a decision that the committee made and pretty much assume that it was a money grab, I mean, that results in a lack of trust from all of us.
Well,
Because
I'm sorry.
is that how you feel? Do you think it is?
I really do.
Then that's all we
I
needed to know.
really do
Thank you.
feel that I really do feel that everything that this community does from this committee has always been pushing the buck to the parents, the students. You know, every fee, it adds up. It adds up to everything, and I'm going to fight it until I turn. It's my belief. But the thing is, and the great thing about it, Stephanie, is I have the right as a citizen to continue to voice my concern, to fight things that I believe in. So you don't like the way I did this. I apologize that you don't like it, but would I change it? No, because I believe I did what I felt was the correct thing to do. Okay. So with all due respect, I personally think it's an embarrassment that we have a topic in our meeting about this when a gentleman... I think it's an embarrassment
that you wrote a letter to the editor.
Well, that's okay. But you want to know what I do know? Is that I have a gentleman who spent 40 years in education in this building as well that wrote, good letter, bullseye. Regional committee should be spending more time evaluating high school learning standards and test scores, which is embarrassing. They should be requiring the superintendent to hold confidential focus group meetings with teachers. No administrator is doing anything that the school is promoting advanced level of student achievement. That's where I want to spend my focus. Well, you know what? And you know, and this person is highly recommended by, very respected by all of you. All of you. But I'm saying this, I'm sorry, we're focusing on things that we should be focusing. This being on the agenda is inappropriate, just like having a person reading an article and singling out a one school committee member that was against it. Well, you know what? We all have voices. You want to know something? Things are done correctly. If things were done correctly, I didn't break any oaths, I didn't break any laws, I didn't break anything. You don't like the way I did it? I'm sorry. Tough. But I'm out to remove all slush funds. I find that all these fees are just nothing but a slush fund to promote, because I'm very disappointed that none of you know where this money goes. So I'm sorry.
We do, I'm
Well,
sorry.
I'm moving this. I'm not even talking
Could I just
about
have
it.
a moment? I had no intention of raising this issue. It's something that I had been very concerned about for several years, and we had another parking situation that had to be resolved, and so this kind of got deferred. From my perspective, this article should be back on the warrant in May. There was a very unfortunate dynamic at the last special town meeting, compounded by the fact that it was bad weather, so we had a relatively small turnout. This was defeated. I don't believe, based on Mr. Machado's letter to the editor or what he added in terms of the discussion, but as a result of an unfortunate dynamic that existed at that meeting. But I think we lost a 2/3 vote by 8 votes, and I think we should ask that this be put on the warrant in May. In the meantime, I think that we do need to have a discussion, perhaps with the town, as to how these areas can be administered, because I believe I have been out there and personally observed what's gone on. I think, Mr. Machado, if you'd gone out and observed what's going on, particularly on Prospect Street, you would recognize that there are legitimate safety concerns among our students. Secondly, I totally reject the idea that we should not mention the idea of having supervision over our parking areas. I respect your opinion. I respect the opinion of the parent who said that she was offended by my comment that it would provide us with greater control. There are 2 aspects of this: greater control over those parking areas as well as safety. I've always said that our greatest concern is student safety. I've quoted Ted Sizer, who I heard speak over 30 years ago, who said that safety of our students is the most important consideration. Students don't learn unless they feel safe. There is a safety component to this. There is also a component of being able to supervise our own parking areas. I'm amazed that the parent of teenagers would say that we don't need control. Does that mean that that parent doesn't have any control over her teenagers at home? They may be model students, but teenagers need certain parameters, certain limits. And among those are, I think, legitimate concerns about what goes on among our students in the area surrounding this campus. We need to be good neighbors. We need to respect our neighbors. Our neighbors are impacted on Luther Avenue and on Prospect Street, and we need to be concerned about that. So I think we should just move forward, do all we can to make sure that these areas, that we do what we can to see that these areas are safe until this matter can be reconsidered. I was expecting that if this easement had been prepared, we would have been looking to expend some money to provide some changes along Luther Avenue and also along Prospect Street, where we need some kind of walkway for our students to utilize away from the street. Because with Mr. Schoonover, with Mr. Campos, and with the consultant, we observed students coming around the corner on Luther Avenue and actually walking two abreast on Prospect Street, which is a busy street, to get to the cars that are parked there on Prospect Street, and that is unsafe for our students. So we need to address this, and I think we should be looking at how we can work with the town in the interim to deal with the parking that exists there. I realize it's been there for a while, but it's time to address the safety aspects of this. But I would stick by what I said, that I think we also need to think about a certain level of imposing a certain level of responsibility for those students who exercise the privilege of driving a car to school. We provide bus transportation. And I can tell you again that when we had an issue with a parent who expressed concern that that parent's child was walking on Prospect Street where there are no sidewalks, we immediately responded and indicated that that student would ride the bus because there was a legitimate safety concern. If there is a parent who lives in your neighborhood that has a safety concern about their student walking to school, they should make us aware of that, and we will do everything we can to address it because safety is the utmost importance. I would make a distinction. There are sidewalks on County Street for a student to walk on. Prospect Street is a busy street and there are no sidewalks, and that's why we address that situation from a safety perspective. But if there's a legitimate concern on the part of the parent, that parent should make us aware of it, and we will do everything we can to address it.
Okay, so I need
Can I say something?
Can I have a clarification? Do we have busing for all students, or do we not?
No, we do not. We have no
I
legal...
need, because I would like that to be discussed at a next previous meeting,
It's part of
please.
it's part of our policy. It's part of our written policy.
I need to
We
be
have
addressed.
no,
So you need to
can
go
I
on
just
policy.
finish? We have no
I'll bring
no
parents here.
obligation to provide any transportation to high school students.
Wait, you're absolutely correct that unless they live with 1.5 miles out.
No, no,
I would
no
like
matter
to
where
leave
they
that.
live, we do not have a legal responsibility
Again.
to provide bus transportation for high school students. Our policy is that we provide bus transportation for students who live outside of a 1.5 mile radius. But as I have indicated, if there are any safety concerns that are raised by parents, we make every effort to address them.
As a school committee member, I am telling you people, you're speaking forked tongues. You're saying it's all about safety, but yet students have to get permission to ride on the bus that we pay for and they're half empty. But yet you don't want children to park in the, you guys are forked tongues. You speak on both sides.
The reason for that is, Victor, that the
Forked
Department
tongues.
of Elementary and Secondary Education has established that standard and has said that from their policy perspective, they don't see the need for transportation within a 1.5 mile radius.
And
Now,
I
as
understand,
said,
but we have buses that are going through, that's,
Chair,
I'm
can I
sorry,
say something?
forked tongues.
Yes. Thank you. First of all, anybody who knows me knows that I'm non-argumentative, okay? I'm not a very good, and I agree with Mrs. Fields, Mr. Pierce, Mr. Machado, and everything you've said. And respectfully, I say this, in the words, George, our teachers and our staff and our community school students do not pay to park. Nor should they ever have to pay to park, which is why I'm wrestling with why our students pay to park. I do know pay to park started somewhere after 2004, 2005. That's exact. My youngest graduated in 2004, and she never paid to park at all. So that was 2004, 15 years ago. So somewhere between there and when the new high school was built, we implemented a fee, pay to park. Yes, parking is a privilege, without a doubt. And of course, we have busing. But I noticed that most of the freshmen and sophomores take the bus because, on a good note, most of our juniors and seniors need to bring their car to school because either they go to work, which is good, they're employed after work, or they participate in extracurricular activities, sports, band, you name it, they have to stay later because they participate in extracurricular activities. And I want our subcommittee on finance, when they meet next week and the weeks to come, just consider. I'm not asking you to remove the fee. I would not dare do that. But I'm asking you just to consider what it would look like without the fee. And I implore everyone to, maybe you already have, Ryan Silverman, I brought this up, had a nice interview with Principal Lanziski to talk about where the funds go. Half of them seem to go towards plowing and the upkeep of the parking facilities. Some go to, I used to call it raiders in need or what have you for those who help with some of their things. And I think that's great. But I just wish we put everybody on the same playing even field as far as equity, as far as parking, and just have nobody pay the park, and not just the students. You know, if we really need that $10,000 to $12,000 in the budget every year, that's fine. I would like our subcommittee to discuss that. It just seems over the last 7 to 8 years, we've had an increase in state aid, which is good. Is that going to continue every year? I don't know. But I just have a hard time with you, and I understand the one-to-one is a fee because of the insurance and the pay-to-play, which I still have an issue with. But just take a look at that fee to see if it's really necessary that we need to have it. If you think we do, I'm going to go along with you. I'm going to go along with you. So, but I really wish our students didn't have to pay the park, because as someone who's known a lot of things that's going on in this school, I really didn't know that for the last couple of years that our students paid the park. I didn't.
So I appreciate your respectful request to us, and I just want to clarify the process. The angst that you're expressing, Mr. McDonald, I assure you is the angst that we all felt when we had to look at increasing it. This is not a one-sided issue. This is not a very black and white issue. I mean, when we sit at the budget committee, and then when we sit at this larger committee over the past several years, we had to take into consideration the rising cost of education. We have to take into consideration the economic realities facing both towns, and what a broad base of our constituents are asking us to be mindful of. So on one hand, and I can tell you, this was thoughtfully and carefully debated, and many meetings where we would, and not to say that we can't debate it again, we absolutely can. But to say that it was not an easy decision, I just want to make that clear. It was not an easy decision because while at one, we did research on what's been out there in other communities, and that's not to say, oh, we're going to do what other people do, but we had that in hand. We looked at our budget and our needs and looked at that in detail. We also looked at what both town representatives were asking us to be mindful of. So again, I just want to clarify to the committee, it's okay to have a difference of opinion. But I would hope that both members of both communities have an understanding that every decision we've reached has not been done so in haste. It has not been done, and I don't mean to use this word, but as a money grab or anything like that. It really has been a very careful consideration. We absolutely would prefer not to do that, but we have to look. I mean, we had Berkeley really facing an override not too long ago. Twice. So we had to really look at responsible ways of increasing our funding levels. It doesn't mean we can't revisit that, but I just want the community to understand that anything that we've put in place, and I know Mrs. Field, and I know personally I actually met with people on the sidewalk at Walmart, or in homes, or on the corner here, or in meetings, to get their feedback and to talk to them and to explain what the position was. And we assured people that we would continue to look at this, and we have. Mr. Schoonover has presented immediately after we instituted fees, if there were any issues we wanted to see, any drop-off in participation in sports and activities. And we monitor that on an annual basis, and we will continue to monitor it. We will continue to evaluate it. And with parking, when there was an issue that was brought up last year, the administration addressed it. There was an issue. We needed to change the approach, and we changed it. I just want to make clear, it's fine to have a difference of opinion. It's fine to think of, there must be another way to do this. And we will continue to look at it. What I want the community to understand, and I think they do, people that I talk to, I think appreciate it. Every decision that we've made to this point, and believe we continue to make, will be made on the basis of a lot of information, consideration for all the stakeholders, and especially for the students.
Chair, one final comment. I support the meeting.
I have one final comment, and I'm going to call it quits because it is getting late. I know every decision that you make, you have given it some thought. For me to say that you haven't, but I'm a very person that I have a feeling that a couple of years ago, a few years ago, thank God a long time ago now, K-8 had an issue with finances. Every school committee waived its stipend. $12,000, half of that stipend goes to the elected officials. At what point did you say, you know what, we're going to charge students for bus rides, or we're going to charge students for sports, we're going to charge students. I would like you to take a page and say, you know what, let's save the community $6,000, because I know you went out and you looked, okay, this school district is doing, I also know a lot of school districts that do not receive a stipend.
Okay.
So you may want to consider that as well.
Sure.
Again, what I'm saying is, it's just wrong having parents pay for something or students pay for something. We honor these kids to achieve in sports, achieve in music, achieve in everything. It's part of the high school experience. So, and I do respect that Berkeley may have had issues and all of that, but with all due respect, I attended many meetings in Berkeley where I mentioned to them that being a region may cost more money, and it has. But that was something that they all knew and they agreed to. I'm sorry, I cannot, I look at our students as a whole, but you know what? School makeup committees change, and unfortunately, you need to bring these policies to us to vote on. Or I'm going to have to say, because, you discussing at a subcommittee, you have the choice of what comes here. Then bring all the policies to us, because I want to question it. I can tell you right now, my next mission is now to have busing for all, because every student should be entitled to busing. Every student should have the entitled to park on property that belongs to the school. It's public land, so that's just my opinion. I'm going to leave it at that because it is late.
Then Victor, why didn't you cancel the parking when you were on K-12?
I did not know about it, and
Okay.
I'm going to be asking. I'm going to be honest with you. Just like a lot of people did not know about I want to know where that money went to. I have no idea where that $10 went to, and I'm going to actually be putting a public record to find out what happened to those funds from 10 years ago, because I was not aware of that. So I'm going to be asking, Jeff, I'm sorry, but you're going to be doing some digging to see when it was happening, because I'm going to put a public record. It's not coming from a school committee. It's coming from, I want to know. So
Is that focusing on student learning?
what's that?
Is that public act?
It's fleecing America. It's fleecing Somerset. I think everybody should be entitled to
That money has
know.
already been received while you were,
But I
while you
want
were
to know.
serving on the committee.
No one knows
But
when
I'm
it
just
started.
saying, the time that the superintendent is
I have a
spending
public
to-
record. Again, I have that right as a public official,
Well,
as a public
again-
person.
Right, but
Mr. Taro and Mrs. Gagliardi, is it possible and achievable for us to have an analysis of the revenues that we get from parking fees and what they're supporting in the budget for the February meeting?
yeah.
Because I know the process is just starting, Mr. Taro, on the budget, and certainly I don't want I don't want to derail your progress. But I do think that if we could have that information for February, that'll be well ahead of the May special town, or the May town meeting, where Our hope is to have the public reconsider the parking easement. So I think that would address both your concern, Mr. McDonald, and your concern, Mr. Machado, as to where those funds are utilized.
Yes,
Is that
thank you.
fair?
Thank you.
Is that achievable, Mr. Terrell?
Yes.
Okay.
So can I just ask a question? Is it true, or is it accurate that the Somerset School Committee doesn't receive a stipend?
We do.
Right, you receive a $3,500 a year stipend, I believe, Mr. Machado, which you waived one year because you had a multi-million-dollar deficit in your budget. This committee receives a $1,500 stipend, which we established at the beginning because we felt that the stipend wasn't the most important thing. I contribute well in excess of the $1,500 stipend that I receive on an annual basis to various student organizations at this high school. So I receive effectively a negative compensation for serving on this committee, and I take real umbrage for you to suggest that we're being selfish when for the last 10 or 15 years, with the exception of 1 year, you've been collecting a $3,500 stipend.
And might I add, in Berkeley, there's only one $1,500 stipend, and the representatives from Berkeley split it.
I know you've attended town meetings many times. 2 town meetings, I made a motion to eliminate stipends for the school committee, and the town voted against me.
Yeah.
So with all due respect, I also donate that money as well. Like the Education Foundation, I donate a lot of money to these other organizations, and I'll be more than happy to supply all the checks, my personal checks to you if you would like. Because I make it, but, so without what you do, all I know is before I would ever ask children to pay for dues, I would look at, just like I did with the K-8, I would eliminate mine. So with all due respect, you're still taking money to donate to something that you're claiming on your own taxes. I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me. But that's your own personal issue. If you're able to accept money, that's fine. I know I would not be.
I don't think the conversation this evening, and that's certainly not the agenda item. And I do think that most of the folks on this committee do their very best to contribute to their individual communities to the best of their ability, stipends or otherwise. So while I understand exactly what you're saying, Mr. Machado, it is off the topic. And
Absolutely.
You know,
We have a budget season that we will be discussing that again, and I appreciate that.
so are there any other questions or comments under this section? Any public input? Hearing none, I'd like to take a vote to enter into an executive session pursuant to Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body and the chair so declares, to discuss pending litigation.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion and a second by roll call. Mrs. Gagliardi?
Aye.
Mr. Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Giliducci?
Aye.
Mrs. Field?
Aye.
Mr. Machado?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald? Aye. And the chair votes aye. We will not be returning to open session. Thank you all for attending this evening, and we look forward to seeing you on January the 9th.